Hi, I'm Diane Hatfield doing a case study on Target at the Center of Battle over Plan B. The case study is a real-life story of Rachel Perchot, a 27-year-old social worker in St. Louis. She received 2 prescriptions from her doctor, one's for orthotricycline and the other one was for Plan B emergency contraceptive. She went to a pharmacy at her local Target store to have her prescriptions filled, and she was refused. The pharmacist refused to fill her prescriptions because it was against her own moral standards. Target disputes the allegations and says there was no refusal to fill the prescription. However, this case is the latest in a series of 12 refusals that are documented by Planned Parenthood over the past 12 months. Since the emergency contraception Plan B has been made available, there's been an increasing amount of conflict over access to this type of birth control. Some people consider this type of contraception an abortion pill because rather than preventing an egg from being fertilized, it prevents it from being implanted in a woman's uterus. The argument over the exact moment that a human life begins has been strongly debated for centuries. The American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists supports the description of Plan B as a contraceptive. When taken within 72 hours of unprotected sex, Plan B, also called the morning after pill, is 89% effective at preventing unplanned pregnancies. So the question then becomes whether or not a pharmacist who's opposed to Plan B has the right to refuse to fill the medication order if it violates his or her individual beliefs. Missouri Governor Matt Blunt recently vowed to support legislation that would allow pharmacists to refuse to fill a prescription for emergency contraception. Target's policy on the issue is that they do allow their pharmacists to refuse to fill the prescription for moral or religious reasons, but if they do refuse it, they have to refer them to another pharmacist or another pharmacy in a timely and respectful manner. The textbook for this case asks the question of what professional responsibility does a pharmacist have in filling prescriptions for their clients. As a pharmacist, the professional responsibility is fiduciary. The pharmacist may have superior knowledge of the medication being administered, but it's the client who retains the rights and responsibility in decision-making. It's not the responsibility of the pharmacist to decide what prescriptions should be administered to a client, especially when a doctor has already made that decision by writing the prescription for them. As part of a fiduciary relationship, the pharmacist might make a suggestion, but it's not for them to make the final decision on whether or not the medication should be taken. Not only does the client have a fiduciary relationship with the pharmacist, but the pharmacist sort of has a fiduciary relationship to the doctor who has written the prescription. The doctor has superior knowledge of the patient and is acting in their best interest by ordering this prescription for them. A pharmacist's personal judgments and opinions should not really have a bearing on the prescriptions being filled. It also asks, what rights do the pharmacists have in maintaining a personal ethical standard that may contradict their professional responsibility? In addition to the Plan B contraceptives, there's another prescribed medication that a pharmacist might object to and they might refuse to fill. When looking at this case, it made me think about the assisted suicide that we're hearing a lot about in the news recently, and how pharmacists might be asked to fill a prescription for the medications that would be used to end somebody's life. The topic has received a lot of media attention, and while it's completely different from the Plan B contraceptive, it could be argued that there is a connection between the two. Those who see the Plan B as an abortion pill, they see it as a way of putting an end to an unwanted life. Some people suffering from debilitating diseases, they're also choosing to bring an end to an unwanted life, a life of suffering for them that'll only come to an end with their own death. So they're choosing to die with dignity and end their lives on their own terms with the help of a doctor and medications prescribed to cause their own deaths. I would imagine that if a pharmacist were presented with the prescription for this type of medication, and they're fully aware of what will happen when the person takes the medicine, they would have a difficult time filling the prescription, and they might even end up feeling responsible for causing the death of another human being. For this type of circumstance, you could understand why they might want to refuse to fill the prescription. The textbook asks another question: what rights does a woman have in filling a Plan B contraceptive? Does transferring the medication to another pharmacy or pharmacist, does it undermine the pharmacist's original refusal? Or does a transfer allow for an adherence to both professional responsibility and the client's rights? It seems likely that a pharmacist who has refused to fill a prescription because of their beliefs would be resistant to having the prescription filled at all. However, a doctor has ordered this prescription be filled, and there's a responsibility carried by the pharmacy, and therefore the pharmacist, to provide the medication. While the pharmacist might have the right not to do something that would violate their individual ethics, they don't have the right to force their beliefs onto someone else. It is their professional duty to refer the client to someone else if they're unable or unwilling to provide the service that's being asked of them. There are many ways to consider the ethics of this case. The utilitarian approach would require a person to produce the most happiness that can be achieved. If the pharmacist refuses to fill the prescription, then not only are they making the client unhappy, but they're making the pharmacy that they work for unhappy as well by the loss of the sale. They would also be aware that organizations such as Planned Parenthood would use this as an opportunity to support their own cause by creating unhappiness amongst other people that would support their cause, which would cause further unrest in the community. When thinking about this case from a virtue ethics view or even a deontology perspective, the course of action to be taken isn't easily determined. The pharmacist and the client both have very different views on the morality of the medication prescribed, but they would both agree that the pharmacist has a professional obligation to see that the prescription is filled, even if the particular pharmacist has to refer them to a different pharmacy or pharmacist because of their personal beliefs. My personal view about the case is that the woman who has the order for the medication, she has the right to get her medication. But she doesn't have the right to decide which individual person at the pharmacy is going to fill it for her. The pharmacist has the right to step aside if he or she feels that filling the prescription would go against their moral code. But they don't have the right to put their own beliefs and opinions onto the woman who's getting it filled. It's not their responsibility to tell the client what they think of the medication that's been prescribed. If there was a medical reason not to take the medication, such as a known adverse reaction to taking it with other medications that the client is also taking, then the pharmacist would be within her rights to advise the client against taking it. The client has already discussed her options with her doctor. She's made a decision for herself based upon the advice of her doctor and her own interests, and she should be treated with respect and courtesy. There might even be a medical condition that the pharmacist is unaware of, and if she knew about this medical condition, it might affect her opinion of the woman that's taking it. I guess that's it. Thanks for watching.